Hey guys, so as promised, I said that I would post a video today of me reading the Calvin and Hobbes comics and going over the questions that go along with the three little comic strips you guys have to read. Before we do that, I wanted to make a couple announcements. So if you guys go in the Google Classroom and you see over here what is due, just a reminder that what is due. Hold on, it's going to take a second to load. But what is due is just extra credit. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. There's a vocabulary worksheet, I think, and then an option for you guys to create a book cover of a book or short story that we've read so far this year. And then I also posted another book for you guys to read called Maniac McGee if you guys are interested in that. But again, those are extra credits. You do not have to do those if you don't want to do them. But some of you guys are complaining about being bored, so I posted more stuff. But we are going to get started with the comics. I pulled them all up. This is what I need first. So what I recommend doing when you guys are looking at comics is just taking a good hard look at the pictures. Because you can pick up a lot from just the pictures. I'm sorry there's this like magnifying glass over this panel, but whatever. So Calvin and Hobbes look like they are laying inside their tent. I know that because if you look right here, you can kind of see the opening, and then you can see it right here. So Calvin says, "Good night, Hobbes," and Hobbes says, "Good night." And then it goes outside of their tent. And then we don't know who says it, but someone says, "Do you believe in ghosts?" And then the next panel is them outside of their tent with Hobbes holding a bat. And you can see the sunlight. You can see they kind of have these dark circles around their eyes. So that is the first comic. We're going to get more into detail with that once we looked at the other two. This one's a little grainy. Sorry, I had to find these on different websites. But the next comic is called Do You Like Her? So Calvin turns to Hobbes and says, "There's a new girl in our class." Hobbes says, "Well, what's her name?" Calvin, you can tell, starts to get a little agitated because the words get bold. He says, "Who knows?" And then Hobbes asks, "Is she nice?" And then again, Calvin screams, "Who cares? Not me." So then, as you can see, if you look at the facial expression on Hobbes, he's starting to think it's a little funny. She's like, "Oh, do you like her?" And then finally, Calvin screams, "No!" Really big. It's shaded down here. It has an exclamation point. It's bold. So from that, you can tell that Calvin might actually have a crush on this girl in his class. And then here is the last one. Again, this one's really important to look at the photo or the illustration, because it's just one line. So it looks like it is Calvin's dad who is on his way to work, and he turns back to what I assume is the house and says, "Calvin, I'm late for work." We assume he is running late because of all these snowmen that are in the middle of the driveway. He probably assumes that Calvin is the one that built them and put them there. So those are the three really simple comics you guys had to read this week. I'm going to go over the questions now. So if you flip to page 29 in your packet, that's where you will find the questions for these comics. So number one, in Ghosts, let me flip to that one. Where are Calvin and Hobbes? So again, I got my answer because if you look at the second and third panels, you'll kind of see there's that little slit at the front of their tent. And then if you go to the first panel, you'll see that slit again of them, which looks like inside the tent. Plus, when you look at the second panel, you can't see them outside of the tent. And then if you look at the third panel, the speech bubble is coming out of the tent. So that makes me think that they are camping inside of the tent. So moving on to number two, in Do You Like Her? How does Calvin respond when Hobbes asks him whether he likes the new girl in his class? So again, I looked at how Calvin responds. First he says, "Who cares?" It's kind of bold, just a question mark. Nothing too crazy. And then it moves into "Who cares? Not me," with an exclamation point. You can see his mouth is open really, really, really big this time, like he's getting frustrated. And then if you look at the last one, as we said, it's bolded, it's shaded, it's got a big speech bubble, there's an exclamation point. So for that one, I put that Calvin responds angrily and he progressively gets more angry, which implies that he likes the girl because his tone changes. So again, you can see here, it's just normal speech. You know, if there's a new girl in our class, it gets bolder with exclamation, and then it's full on yelling in the last one. So number 3, in Snowman Crossing, why does Calvin's dad yell to Calvin that he's late for work? Just look at what's happening here. He's being held up by some snowmen in the middle of the driveway. And like I said before, he assumes that he is running late because there's something Calvin did. That's why he's directly calling Calvin out. So those are the 3 questions right there. You guys are also responsible for answering the notebook question. So number 4 says, write a 1-sentence description of each comic strip. So there's 2 different ways to go about doing this. You guys can either look at just the photographs and try to, or not the photographs, the illustrations, and just try to make a guess of what is going on based off what you see. Or you guys can look at the words that are being said or exchanged. However, I think it is best if you guys look at, what was it, for this one, I think it's really good if you look at the dialogue, but then you also look at the photographs, because this one, you can make an assumption about what happened in panel 4 just based off of the illustration. There's no words, but you kind of have a good idea that they were up maybe all night because they were afraid that maybe ghosts would come get them or something. But you need to at least have 3 sentences for that answer because you have 3 different comic panels to look at. So then if you flip it over to page 30, you guys do not have to do the close review. I don't want you to do that. You can do it for bonus points, but it is completely optional. So then we go to analyze the media questions. Number 1, make inferences. An inference is a conclusion you draw about something that is not directly stated or shown. In Ghosts, what do you think happens between the 3rd and 4th panels? So again, if you look at the 3rd and 4th panels of Ghosts, do you believe in ghosts? And then they come out and Hobbes is holding a bat. There's dark shadows under their eyes. You can see the sun's kind of coming up over here. To me, that means that they didn't sleep at all because they were so worried about ghosts coming for them, which then kind of confirms that they do believe in ghosts because they stayed up all night trying to save themselves from ghosts. So then part 2 to that question, what details in the comics support your inference? So again, I said that Hobbes is holding a bat, the sun is coming up, they have dark circles under their eyes, so this kind of supports my idea that they didn't sleep at all because they were really worried about the ghosts coming after them. Number 2, speculate. Why do you think Calvin refuses to answer Hobbes' questions about the new girl in class? So for this one, you'll have to flip back to the Do You Like Her comic strip. So I put that he refuses to answer because he likes her. I don't know how you guys are now if you have a crush, what you tell people or how you go about handling that. But a lot of people respond the same way that Calvin did. They're like, oh no, I don't like her. No, I don't like her. Stop talking about her. No, I do not like her. Stop talking about her. You get progressively angrier as you share your feelings because you don't want people to know actually how you feel because you don't want that person to find out that you like them. So number 3, draw conclusions. What can you tell about the relationship between Calvin and Hobbes? Explain, citing details from the comics that you used to draw your conclusion. So I put that I think Calvin and Hobbes are really good friends because except for this last one, the Snowman Crossing one, they're together in these 2, and they're only doing things that I would do with my really close friends. Like I wouldn't go camping with a stranger. I wouldn't tell an acquaintance or a stranger who my crush is. But one of the reasons I came to this conclusion is that Hobbes is holding this bat, so he is trying to protect him and Calvin from these ghosts. You wouldn't protect someone from a ghost if you didn't like them or if you weren't good friends with them. And then if you go to the Do You Like Her comic strip, it looks like they're pushing each other down a hill. So they're, hanging out, having fun, playing together, which to me also kind of shows that they're good friends. So then number 4, essential question. What are some of the challenges and triumphs of growing up? What have you learned about the challenges and triumphs of growing up by reading these comic strips? So one of the things that I focused on was this ghost comic strip again. So I said one of the challenges to growing up is facing your fears. I remember when I was little, I absolutely little, like potty training little. I absolutely hated the sound of the toilet flushing, so I would sprint out of the bathroom after I flushed it. But now as an adult, I realized that it's fine. It won't hurt me to flush the toilet and walk out of the bathroom. But this is one of the things I talked about for this panel, is that in Ghosts, we see the Calvin and Hobbes struggle with their fear of ghosts. Because as you can see, again, they stayed up all night trying to fight off ghosts, stay away from ghosts, not get abducted or harmed by ghosts. I also put that one of the struggles of growing up is dealing with, you have crushes on boys and you have crushes on girls. So this is kind of what's going on here, is Calvin obviously brings it up because he likes her. He's like, oh, there's a new girl in our class, and he wants to talk about her. But then when Hobbes kind of pushes and pushes, he's like, no, I don't like her. I don't care about her. I don't want to talk about her at all. Which I'm sure all of you guys have experienced this before. But I think these are two experiences that we face as we get older. I don't know about you guys, but maybe if you had like a blankie or a stuffed animal when you were little, you had to absolutely take it everywhere. Maybe now it's not important or as important that you take it everywhere you go. That could kind of be this facing your fears thing. But that is just my take on it. You guys can answer however you like, as long as it makes sense to the prompt. So moving on to media vocabulary, these are the last 3 questions for this section. Number 1, why might Watterson is the author, why might Watterson have included only one panel in the snowman crossing? So I put that Watterson included one panel so that he could illustrate how many snowmen were blocking the path. The illustration is also what makes the comic funny or adds humor to it. Because I don't know if you guys still get newspapers at your house, but there was a whole section in the newspaper about, or it was just for comics. But you were really only given one segment of the paper. Like if you wanted to split it up in 6 different panels, you could do that, but all of your panels had to stay this size. So people might cut it, across here and then do 1, 2, and 3 to create 6 panels. But you really did not have that much wiggle room on how large your panel could be. You couldn't change the size of it just because of the printing process. So I again put that he really wanted to focus on the illustration for this one because the illustration is kind of the joke. Because as you can see too, there's the snowman crossing sign that he has, but Calvin's dad is not amused. He is upset by it. So number 2, in Do You Like Her, how does Watterson indicate that a character is speaking with emotion? So I kind of went over this before, but when you guys are answering this, I would look at how Calvin responds to Hobbes. So look at his speech in the first panel, it's normal, regular speech. And then as the comic continues, his speech and the speech bubble and even his facial expressions start to change. So keep that in mind when you are answering number 2. And in number 3, in Ghosts, some of the panels include dialogue, whereas others do not. Why do you think Watterson chose to have panels without dialogue in this comic strip? So dialogue is when someone is speaking. So only half of the panels in this comic have dialogue. So I put that I think the second box has no dialogue because it shows the stillness of the outdoors, which gives Calvin and Hobbes time to think and relax. I don't know how many of you guys have ever actually gone camping in a tent before, but when you go camping, it's really quiet, it's really still. You can hear any little creaks of animals stepping on twigs. If you're by a river, you can hear the water running. It's really, really, really quiet and peaceful. And you guys might not realize how loud your house is sometimes, but we don't sleep in complete silence. Some of us sleep with a fan on. Sometimes if we go to bed early, we can still hear like our neighbors outside. You can hear the heat or the AC running. Sometimes you can still hear your parents somewhere in the house awake. We never sleep in complete silence, so this can be a new experience for Calvin and Hobbes, which makes it kind of creepy. And then I think, again, the fourth box is really important. It doesn't need dialogue because you can tell the experience they had based off just how they looked. Again, you see the sun coming up in the background. Hobbes is holding a bat. They have these black circles. They just look really frazzled and upset by the whole thing. But in order to set the scene, you do need the dialogue in box or in panel 3. Otherwise, they woke up like this. Kind of makes no sense. You wouldn't really know why they woke up like that. You're just like, okay, they're tired. They didn't sleep. But now you know they didn't sleep because there were ghosts. So that is all I have for you guys today, reading the Calvin and Hobbes comics and going over the questions for you guys. I do want to remind you that your packets and any other material that you have not previously turned in is due by Friday at I think 1 o'clock. So please get your stuff turned in so you can get credit for it. This is not like the last Blizzard bag. You guys absolutely have to turn your stuff in by Friday, or else you will just receive, I think, a 0, because it's the end of the grading period. If you guys have any questions about your grades too, let me know. Because we do not use Google Classroom consistently for grades, if you have questions about your grade, I can send your grade to you. You just need to email me and ask. But grades are updated in Progress Book. So if you want to look at Progress Book for your grade, go for it. If you want to try to raise your grade in the last week, again, check out these extra credit assignments. These are the only ones that I'm assigning, so don't ask me for more if you're upset with your grade. But that is all I have for you guys. I hope you have a great summer. But yeah, I hope you enjoy your summer and you guys find some fun stuff to do. Thanks for such an awesome school year.